to be on her way down, our SWS director.
Okay.
Or she was going to attend in person. She's our first agenda item. Bill Falsey agenda item number 2 has script, folks. If you never have to call in, sure he's not asleep. She did funny.
Thank you. Okay with me chairing or?
Yeah,
chair? I don't care either way. And Becky, is it okay if I call the meeting to order and we
Yeah.
do some of our stuff, or do you need some time?
We can absolutely get started. Kelly's not here yet. She's agenda item number 1, but we can dive in, or we could start with, we could reorder and start with HLB if we want to, if you want, everyone who definitely is here, because
Okay.
me and Ryan are on.
Okay, maybe we'll do that. All right, it's 4 o'clock, April 27th, 26th. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the MOA GBOS quarterly meeting. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors, committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meeting Act as found in Alaska Statute 44.62.310 and Alaska Municipal Code 1.25 public meetings. We operate under the Girdwood Public Meeting Standard of Conduct. I'm Jennifer Wingard, co-chair of GBOS. Mike, could you read the land acknowledgement?
Yeah, sure. Land acknowledgement. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors acknowledges the indigenous people of Alaska whose land we reside on. The community of Girdwood, located between the areas known to me Denida and Alutiiq homeland, respects the people who are stewards of the land for generations. We commit to the continued stewardship of this land and are grateful to be part of a wider community that seeks to maintain a sustainable use of Girdwood Valley for present and future peoples.
Thank you. And Kyle, could you roll call?
Margaret.
Margaret?
Sure.
Sorry, Margaret.
No, that's okay. Brian Burnett.
Present online.
Thank you. Brianna Sullivan.
Present online.
Mike Edgington.
Present.
Kelly Ocknick. It's not here.
Kelly is traveling.
That's right.
If she's
Remembrance. And Jennifer Wingard.
Yes. The public is encouraged to ask questions, provide comment. Please raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged. I don't know if we have any public here. Oh, there we go. To help discussion stay productive, please direct your comments to the board rather than other members of the public, and keep your comments focused on business under discussion. So let's start with agenda approval.
move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Right. So Becky, would you like us to change the HLB to number 1?
Actually, I think because Kelly just arrived, Kelly just from Solid Waste Services.
Oh, or do you need a moment to settle, or are you?
I'm good.
Okay.
I think if we could just move to the tourism, I did get a text from Bill Falsey that he's lying down and he will join. Let's see here, if I have a second, maybe I will drag myself in shortly. So I guess we can leave it as is and hope that Bill joins us by item number 2. And if not, I might ask if we can table that to later, because I think his presence will be helpful. I apologize.
No,
The whole
absolutely.
family has strep throat, so he's down for the count situation.
So-
Yes.
We'll amend it then to item 2 at the end after 5.
If we need to.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, yeah,
Whatever.
absolutely. All right, we have a number of people online and in the room. Do you want to do introductions, or would you like to just dive in?
We can do quick introductions. It's
Excellent.
helpful to have everyone who's not here and online. Becky Pearson, Municipal Manager, with me in the room. Kelly, you want to say hi?
Hi, Kelly Toth, Director of Solid Waste Services.
And for our various other agenda items, we should have Bill Falsey joining us momentarily for number 2. Ona Browse, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, I see online for number 3. We have Tiffany Briggs and Ryan Yell from HLB online for the 2 HLB items. And then I think the number 5 between Ona and Bill and I, we can speak to that or be part of that conversation because we've been the representatives on that conversation before. We also have Bob Dole, our Director of Community Economic Development, notably online with us as well, who oversees all the real estate functions of the items.
All right, thank you. Well, diving in, let's dive right into item number 1, the solid waste services and fee issues, which I think we're just circling back around on.
Do you want to give good news about recycling first?
Or recycling.
About
I'd be happy
food? Yeah.
Yeah, so the aluminum can recycling can is now set at the Girdwood recycling or at our Girdwood transfer station. Yeah, it does take me a moment, I guess, to get myself together. So that's exciting and that will be there full time. And beyond that, the can will look different. That's a temporary one for now. So we'll have another one set and you'll get used to seeing it there and it'll be the same one. But right now there's a temporary one there. But at least that was as of the 25th. So as of Saturday. And then we'll also have a collection day for electronics. That will be happening sometime in June, July fashion. We're still working on a date. We're working with the Lions Club to get a date set up for that. And then I have a whole slew of events. If I could just share with you, citywide cleanup kickoff is at Westchester Lagoon, May 2nd. That's from 12 to 3 p.m. Citywide cleanup continues from May 2nd to the 31st. And then those will be the orange bags. Those are for free disposal during the month of May in those bags. Then there's Chugach member appreciation event. That's at Change Point Church from May 29th from 1 to 4. There's the material recovery facility electronics recycling, which is our collection day at the MRF, we call it. It's the facility right across from the transfer station. So that collection day is June 6th. So that's for free collection of recycling, keep them out of the landfill. There's a refashion trash fashion show happening at the Anchorage Museum, June 11th from 6:30 to 9:30. And then again, your recycling date, which will either be June 13th or June 27th from 10 to 1. So we're continuing to organize that, however that will look. So that is the SWS update for you at this time.
That's great. May I ask, I haven't seen the aluminum can recycling, so I gather it's inside the entrance to the transit.
Right.
So it's open when the transit center is open.
Yes, yep. Thank you for asking. It is. It's open. And there's a social media post that just went out this afternoon that has all the information. Really, the biggest thing is we want to make sure people asking them to please rinse their cans so that we don't have that sweet attractant smell as much as possible. But yes, the collection area is inside the gate and it will be manned there and it's for residential disposal only.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
Not on recycling, but on the other matter.
Okay. Do you want to, do you have a specific update about SWS or Mike, would you like Mike to start with his questions?
I would just say SWS, I want to share with you or remind you of how the structure of that fee looks. So the collection of the Healthy Spaces fee is for SWS to collect, and then we immediately, well, not immediately, but we then transfer those funds over to Parks and Rec that then implements the Healthy Spaces program. So we collect it, we pass it on. That's how that's working. So I don't know how much I'll be able to answer for you, but I will do my
The
best.
question was about, as we talked about before, you heard some feedback both in Girdwood and also in town about the disproportionate impact of the fee on small user groups. And we had talked about, or small users, there's people who are bringing small loads and being levied the same fee as the fee on a larger load. And so I know what I shared with GBOS was that we were tracking, we had just met at the beginning of the year and decided we would track feedback and impact over the next 6 to 12 months. And then if we see that that's an issue, potentially go back to the assembly with a change, acknowledging that accomplishing a change immediately would potentially be challenging given that it had just been implemented and we're hearing immediate feedback, but had no kind of data to support it. I know when I touched base with Mike and Jennifer last week, and I emailed you this question, but one of the questions was like, what can we track? Like, are we able to, I know Girdwood has a specific concern about whether this causes a change in behavior. And I didn't know if we could track the small loads like how many, if we're getting a smaller number of small loads this year, if we're actually seeing a change in behavior at the transfer station here in Girdwood.
I will find out that answer. I think that we probably can.
Okay.
I know that there was a time a few years ago when we tracked how many people came through the gate, just so that we had an idea of on a daily basis, sort of the ebb and flow of people that are coming through the gate. So as far as granularly looking at those 1 to 4 bags versus the other fee, I'm sure there's a way we can break that out. We are right a week away from go live of our new software system. So the people that would be tracking that are knee deep in getting that transition done. I'm not making excuses, but it is monumental for SWS. We haven't had a software system upgrade since 2014. So it's a large project, but we can certainly look into it and pull those out if that's what we're thinking.
Yeah.
And I think we could ask the attendant there. I haven't received any feedback that behavior has actually changed or has been impacted at this time.
Because I think the two ways we can gather feedback are what we're hearing response. I know we've talked about like what kind of feedback are we getting at the gates from people who are like, this is terrible, or this is why, kind of being that feedback. But then the other is seeing if we see an actual change in behavior. And I think the worry, you're right, is that if we disincentivize the bringing of small loads to the transfer station, that we incentivize the storage of trash in the community in a way that might lead to more bear erection. So I think the data point we can track is, are we seeing at the
Right.
transfer station more large loads and less small loads or less frequent visits? So you and I can talk more offline, but I think that was the real thing we're trying to get at, is how can we build some data around that to see if there's like the change in behavior is documented, and then consider whether that feeds into whether we propose a change in
I think that,
fee on small loads.
sorry, I think the challenge you're going to find here is the difference in behavior we expect is instead of people bringing 1 bag a week or every other week, they're going to be waiting until they get 4 bags. So as far as the categories that you care about for charging, it will not change. It will just be that people are basically storing raw material locally, up to 4 bags locally rather than up to 1. And that definitely we've heard anecdotally. And I have spoken a little bit to the attendant here, and they're saying they have seen, at least they have, people are talking about
I have
their
not heard
changing
that.
behavior. But it's within that same category. So you're not going to see anything different in terms of how you charge. But obviously if you're having, I think it's $4 extra, isn't it? So if your currently, or if your prior behavior was approximately a bag a week, if you continue that behavior, you'll be paying $16 addition as opposed to $4 addition if you keep it till there's 4 bags once a month. But in doing so, you're probably going to be storing trash in insecure locations around our community. That's our concern. We've done a lot of work to make it to work as much as we can with our local wildlife.
Absolutely.
Very successful.
Mhm.
And we don't want to damage that because of a decision which was perhaps less perfectly thought through.
20 years ago, people would have whole sheds of trash or vans of trash and hoard it and then bring it over. And so, in springtime, especially right now, when the bears are awake and moving through the neighborhoods as they are right now, that now is not the time we need people to be hoarding trash. We need them to be taking it to the dumpster so that bears don't get habituated. Because if we have a good, successful spring, then we don't have any bear problems later on.
Absolutely. Yeah, bears are definitely a concern. That was good. I have to commend you folks here in Girdwood, because the folks in Government Hill were like, we want that for our neighborhood. And they got it last year, which was fantastic. So
They're now 5.
trying to keep those bears moving along. So, yeah.
There are now 5 months of town.
I'm sorry.
I think there are 4 or 5 areas of town now.
Yes, I believe Hillside was also one. Yeah.
So it sounds like we're going to have to wait 6 to 12 months before any action occurs.
I think we could give it maybe an update in the third quarter at that point. I mean, I think just again, realistically, we will want to come back to the assembly with some data about what we're seeing. And so we think we'll track it. I think we could give an update again, maybe when's our September meeting? Do we have a September meeting?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a good target for us to give an update on what we're tracking and what we're thinking.
Sounds good. So, do we have any other questions from the board, or can we move on from this item? Okay.
I'll express a little bit of frustration that we can't do anything soon, but we will see.
We will see, right? Let's see how it goes. All right, item number 2, tourism improvement projects. And we talked a lot about this last week. So,
And Bill is on, so
Okay.
I see Mr. Halsey has joined us. Thank you, Bill, for coming despite your illness. So I had teed up for him the question of talking a bit about, what is the process going to look like from here forward? And I know that if you guys have more feedback to share in this, then absolutely, we can talk about it more. I understand the frustration around this, and I've heard that for sure. I thought that what Bill could productively offer was some thoughts about how we're a good timing for next year, what we're considering to be eligible projects, ways in which to focus potentially some of that money on the Girdwood project in the next round. And so I can turn it to Bill to talk a bit about that.
Happy to set the table a little bit. I think Becky has mentioned I am very under the weather now, so I'm dragging a bit, but I'll try to give you what I know and happy to answer any questions. I think to set the table, I'll remind everybody of how we got here and what the process is going to look like going forward. The first is, as you folks are very well aware, we have a 12% bed tax divided in thirds. 1/3 has traditionally just gone to Visit Anchorage to promote tourism. That's been governed by a contract that expired at the end of last year. And as part of the contract renegotiations, we came up with a slightly new regime to that 1/3 that is dedicated to the promotion of tourism. And we're holding back a portion of that 1/3 for the tourism improvement projects. In 2026, that withholding was 1.6 million. In 2027, it goes to 1.5, and then thereafter it goes to a formula, which probably is going to leave it at around 1.4 for every year that the contract is in place. The rules of the road are that the money is by operation of the charter and vote of the people dedicated to the promotion of tourism. And by contract, we all agreed that that can include tourism-related grants, additional promotional initiatives, visitor-facing infrastructure, destination development activities such as trail work, wayfinding, support for festivals or events, sporting events, dog mushing, performing arts, music festivals, concerts, support for attractions such as botanical gardens, wildlife, cultural institutions, sister city, visitor transportation. But it is a bit of a budgetary jump ball, meaning that the plan is that we will develop the following year's idea for what the tourism improvement projects should entail in the annual municipal budgeting cycle. It's not what happened this year, but only because we had an edge effect, which is that we had a new contract in place January 1st. The 2025 budget cycle had already occurred, so we couldn't go back in time and figure out what the 2026 tourism improvement projects look like in the 2025 budget cycle. But it does tee us up to do it in normal order for 2027. And so normal order for 2027 should be that we'll have a dialogue with Visit Anchorage. We'll receive a proposal from Visit Anchorage of what they think the tourism improvement projects should consist of. And then ultimately the administration has to propose something to the assembly, and then the assembly has to approve that slate of projects, much like it does with a usual budgetary process. And then we do some after action reporting on all of that. What that means for Girdwood, though, is a couple things, is that you've got at least 3 potential bites at the apple, which is to the extent that you are playing in the Visit Anchorage process or on the Visit Anchorage board, you could certainly advocate for Girdwood-based projects to be surfaced by Visit Anchorage. You can advocate with myself and the Office of Venues and with the Mayor's Office as we develop our budget proposal. And then depending on what goes to the Assembly, or actually somebody regardless of what goes to the Assembly, you could certainly advocate in front of the Assembly for how those monies are programmed. I'll tell you that this year, the $1.6 million got programmed first in the amount of $750,000 to support the Performing Arts Center. Performing Arts Center has entered in kind of a new phase of its life where historically its finances largely floated on a Broadway model that's really not available anymore. And so we are trying to figure out what a sustainable Performing Arts Center looks like going forward. The next big chunk of money went to fund some downtown patrols, which are not intended to be forever program uses of that money. there, I think the Visit Anchorage group agreed with us that there was some reputational risk that we were trying to get ahead of to improve the front porch visitor experience in downtown Anchorage and potentially elsewhere. By having regular APD patrols, the only sensible way to do that quickly was to fund it through APD overtime, but that's not the model, the expensive model that we want to look for going forward. And then after that, there was a small grant that went, or smaller grant that went to the Ferrande Association. And the only reason to mention all of that is to say that the Assembly has been very clear, somewhat born of the marijuana and alcohol tax experiences, that they don't want these monies to get programmed in year one or year two and then create an expectation that they're forever monies. Which means that there really is a desire, both from Visit Anchorage and from the Assembly for certain, to make this an annual seed money kind of investment process where we can figure out great ways to improve tourism across the municipality. The last thing I'll say is, as part of the renegotiation with Visit Anchorage, we did want to emphasize, of course, that we are one very large municipality. And so I think for the first time ever, we included in the scope of work language that said we really are trying to promote the municipality as a tourism destination from Girdwood to Eklutna, I think was the lines that we ultimately included. But with that said, I don't know how much of that was preaching to the choir and whether you already had all those rules of the road. If there are questions about those rules of the road, or particular questions about future substantive opportunities, but I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
Well, thank you for that summation and history. I think that's consistent with what we've read, researched, understood, and talked about. Do we have anyone from, I have things I want to say about this, but let me ask the board, first of all, if anyone else does. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, a few things to say. As you know, Bill, I was very disappointed that the large increase in money coming out of that 1/3 of room tax, which, as we know, previous years has never been 1/3; it's been about 1/6. That all of that went to Visit Anchorage. Every other community that has the kind of problems that we do in terms of tourism and infrastructure uses money which is raised particularly from short-term rentals or from tourism tax in general to mitigate the problems around housing, which we face, which in many cases are directly linked to short-term rentals. So it's very disappointing that the money went into a marketing campaign, even if it's for the municipality as a whole. I was taken by your, and I do also understand that there's a lot of problems about how things are tied into charter language, etc. So when you use the term tourism infrastructure, what's the scope of that? Is that things that tourists directly touch, or is that things like keeping businesses open because they're currently closed? We have restaurants closing this month because of the inability to retain staff because of the housing choices here. How broad is that term?
The way I would answer that question is as follows. So there may certainly be a choice to be made about whether to find new bed taxes or to program existing bed taxes to offset short-term rental problems. But the regime that we have now was largely set up in 1978. So in 1977, we had a 5% bed tax, and by vote of the people, we moved it to 8%, and we split it in half, and general government got half, and the other half was dedicated to the promotion of the tourism industry. So that is not further defined really in code or by charter or by the vote, but in practice has always been handed to Visit Anchorage. That is the money that we skimmed from to create this new bucket of tourism improvement projects. And as long as we can all credibly say that the tourism improvement projects are designed to promote the tourism industry, then I think we're okay. The outer edges of that are a little bit left to debate and discussion. So the way it shows up in the contract link in the contract that we agreed to was that list that I was intoning: grants, promotional initiatives, visitor-facing infrastructure, downtown development, trails work, wayfinding, et cetera. But it's largely left to what we as a community can all agree are legitimate tourism promoting expenditures. And so if it goes through a wicket of us and Visit Anchorage and the Assembly, then I suspect then that passes the taste test.
Yeah, understood. I'll pick this week.
Okay, and I'll circle back around. Okay, how about that? So thank you for all of that. I want to circle back around to a couple of things. One is I noticed when you talk about the dollars dedicated to the promotion of tourism, I want to point out that we're really hoping to be able to expand the understanding of promotion to include support of tourism industry, that continuing to promote marketing of something which is becoming less and less, especially in Girdwood, less and less a product that we can provide now that we've lost 2 more restaurants. Our issue is not with a dearth of tourists, not by a long shot. And I wish you could have seen the weekend that we've just survived. But what we really need help with, and as Mike was saying, what almost every other, especially resort or destination-based community has had to do, and Colorado as a state has done this, has expanded the understanding of tourism promotion to include tourism support, and that means support of your tourist workers. So that's one thing I'd like to see. And the other thing that really kind of stuck out for me a little bit was the piece about dialoguing with Visit Anchorage. Again, I understand the way we all understand the way this bond was set up. We all looked at it in depth, hoping to find some cracks. But when you start talking about a tourism improvement projects and you're dialoguing with Visit Anchorage, but not with the community that produces more of these funds than any other community, hands down, any other neighborhood within Anchorage, that's a little bothersome. I understand how the bond is set up, but that doesn't mean that when we talk about things like developing the tourism improvement projects, that we can't also include the community generating the majority, really, or let me put it this way, an outsized portion of those funds per capita. And that we desperately need help. And when we were looking at even adding a tax onto our current bed tax, it was putting us into one of the highest taxed areas in the United States and didn't provide the funds we need. So we really have to work a little bit with the structure we already have. Did you want to add anything to that, Mike? Or sorry, but actually, I didn't mean to not give you a chance to respond.
Oh, I think those points are all very well taken, and I hope that you don't receive the dialogue with Visit Anchorage as to the exclusion of anyone, or even privileging Visit Anchorage beyond the fact that we had to enter into a contract with them so that they could do the core promotion of tourism services. So because it was carved out of the amount of money that they traditionally received, there's a built-in process for how they dialogue with us, but that's not exclusive. And certainly we're all ears. I mean, we don't pretend to have the best ideas, and I think we are all benefited when people who are directly on the front lines can give us their reports from the field. And so whatever the proposal from Visit Anchorage to us ends up being, certainly we are ready to receive anything that you would suggest. And then for the assembly budgetary process is itself a public process, and folks should certainly feel free to weigh in there.
I wanted to specifically ask about the projects we might have on board, but do you want to add something while we're here?
Just some structural.
Sure.
Visit Anchorage is a tourism marketing organization. I think it's actually, they're called TMOs. So it's quite poorly positioned to do any work on broader infrastructure. So I think in general, I'd still say I think it's a disappointing choice to take because as well as the overall tax receipts increasing, as you know, because of the change in conditions under the bond contracts, significant increase in the amount of money going to Visit Anchorage last year and this year. I think it's gone from, I think we had a disagreement over the exact number, but it's gone from somewhere around 5 or 6 million to about 15 to 18 million. So they're receiving significantly more money. And I think using a TMO to try and address structural infrastructural problems is a very, very poor mismatch. So I'm still disappointed in that choice. But I also understand that we have restrictions in how you can interpret charter language. So I think one thing is I'm still unclear as to whether the TIP is actually given to Visit Anchorage and then they dole it out, or whether it's a distinct and separate fund, which is managed presumably by the administration with or with direction from the assembly. Can you clarify that, please?
Yeah, but on both those fronts, Mike, I don't know where the impression that Visit Anchorage went up by $10 million has come from, but that it's not the case. Their 1/3 has grown faster than inflation because bread taxes have grown, and then they uniquely had a holdback that had gone in from the tourism bucket into the convention center bucket, and they got that back, but that was less than $2 million. So there's not been a $10 million jump in their budget. There has been incremental, a couple $1 million increases in their budget. Again, faster than inflation, which is partly how we got everybody to agree that we could shave off money from the core promotion of tourism, advertising, visitor services, and convention center booking into doing something beyond all of those things. That's the first point. On the second point, it is the latter. We are not giving all of the money to Visit Anchorage and then saying, whatever we have programmed as tourism improvement projects, you go pull it off. We really sort of moved it away from that regime. So in this year, the Performing Arts Center money never hits the Visit Anchorage treasury. It stays with us. We grant it out to the Performing Arts Center. Likewise for all of the other functions. And in the future, if you were to say there's a wayfinding project that goes on Winter Creek Trail or something, that would not hit Visit Anchorage at all.
Okay, thank you.
And then if I may, I'd like to ask a question about the timing on all this. Am I understanding correctly that the funds that have been pulled aside for this year are all decided and spoken for? So at this point, just trying to focus on solutions rather than theory. There's not anything that we could ask for, seek out of this current distribution of tips.
That's right. 2026 was programmed by an assembly resolution in February, I think it was.
Okay. And so could you tell us a little bit about the timing when we need to be on top of this and when we need to start trying to figure out what we could submit for next year?
Yes. So by not later than October, we are required to identify and tell Visit Anchorage and then ultimately the Assembly what we think the tourism improvement projects for the following year should be. And so I think the doors never close. So if you have a rolling production of ideas, for sure, get them to us before October. And then by the time the budget actually launches as a proposal, it'll be visible to everyone where the tips list landed.
All right. I strongly suspect that we could come up with some ideas. And so, Margaret, I will ask that we put this on our agenda for the next meeting. And then when we have our pre-meeting, I'll check in with you, hopefully, about what kind of projects might qualify.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Do we have anything else on this item?
Jennifer, I would offer that if you were to mention projects now, they could be old business at your next meeting.
Well, I'm actually a little bit more curious about which of our current projects might qualify. So for example, like we've got the housing study that we've already asked for funds for. We have the potential of either studies or pre-development stage for RV park. I'm sure Kyle might have some ideas. I don't know if I didn't have any new ideas. I wanted to work with what we're already trying to work with in process at this point, but also maybe generate some along the way in the next few months, unless you have something that I should specifically mention, or you can.
No, I just think that if you introduce it now, then it can be more fully discussed at the next meeting instead of being new business at the next meeting and
right.
pushing it off later. So.
Okay. Well, right off the top of my head, it's the projects I've already listed. Brian, did you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you, Jennifer. A question about the process and how the grants are going to be reviewed and then distributed, and who is going to be doing the review on the projects and deciding what is appropriate for tourism improvements.
I can jump in on that. I think in practice, because it's going to roll into the usual budget process, that ends up being some vector sum of myself and the OMB director and ultimately the mayor's office, the chief of staff, and the mayor herself, right? So in general, when we have a limited pot of money with more needs than the pot of money can possibly address, $1.5 million in total next year, we will have a whole suite of potential ideas, and we'll have to go through the hard process of just winnowing down $1.5 million into concrete projects. This year it was, I think, 4 different ideas. We'll see what happens next year. As to the additional gloss of whether the project qualifies as a legitimately promotion of the tourism industry tips process, I think that's sort of the same group, but with the additional overlay that the legal department and Assembly Council and then the Assembly itself will have to all be satisfied that feels like it is consistent with whatever promotion of the tourism industry dedication by the voters in 1978 was intended to cover. So I don't know that there's a single oracle that I will be able to point you to, but I think that is in practice how the soup will actually be made.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have anything else on this item or should we move on? All right, I'm going to move on. Follow up on intergovernmental charges in the GBSA budget, specifically fire and roads.
And for that, Ms. Rouse is here preparing to center all of the questions that we discussed last week. So Ona, I'll turn it to you to talk about IGP.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us here. I would like to start by saying if there are any specific questions that we want to touch on, go ahead and let me know, but I'll give you the sort of general update on where we are with the IGC review, and then we can poke into any of the individual line items if that is useful. After we met with Girdwood and had our conversation about IGCs, we also met with the Chugiak Fire Department and spoke with the Anchorage Fire Department, and we still have some follow-up meetings to do with the Anchorage Fire Department to really open up their IGC formulas to determine when the last time each of them was specifically updated and how the distribution of those numbers is being done. One of the challenges associated with doing that at this very moment is that we are working through our 2025 financial transactions as part of the year-end close process and our ACFR process generally. So the IGCs are based on actual charges that are processed on a monthly or annual basis, depending on where we are in our financial process. And so having full visibility of those IGCs for 2025 is not complete right now, but it will be shortly as accounting and controller division move through making those adjustments within 2025. I will say that the concerns that we heard as part of the GVSA conversation were echoed very similarly on the fire side, in particular for the Chugiak Fire Department. And I think some review, particularly of the administrative and chief office IGCs, but specifically the shop IGCs, because it is such a significant part of your budget, making sure that those are in line with the actuals that Girdwood has used over the last few years, or the way that we blend those over the last 3 years in particular. The 2025 numbers will help us understand what the sort of projection of need for those budgets is. And what I see being the step order here is we have more conversations with the Anchorage Fire Department and the municipality and some of the executives to determine how the IGC distribution works. If there are adjustments that need to be made or any adjustments that we would recommend, we would come back to Girdwood and review those with you as well as with Chugiak. And then we would make those adjustments in 2 ways. The first is as part of the 2027 proposed budget. So we would make sure that the IGC budgets for the upcoming year in 2027 are appropriate. But particularly if there are revisions that need to be made for the 2026 budgets, we can make them in Q2 or Q3 so that the amounts are appropriate for year end. And ideally, if the total budgets come in under the amounts that we have currently set, then that would free up room for you to spend on non-IGC costs as we go forward. But I think that for the most part, right now, I think that we will have a lot of math to pick apart in terms of what the actuals are and the charges associated with specifically Girdwood and how those are being cost through the fire department.
And so I wonder if I'm hearing, am I hearing that it might be better to, I don't know the timeline on the 2025 stuff, but it sounds like for some of this, we might want to circle back around in September. Is that what am I hearing that correct?
I think there are 2 points. I think we could do a June and a September. June, we may know more about the sort of analysis of the IGCs, particularly from the fire department. And then September would be when we revise them for any future activity for 2026, so that you guys may or may not have more room in your budget for the rest of 26 while we are going forward with the 2027 budget build. So that would sort of happen at the same time in the sort of end of Q3.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions from the board?
Just one quick question from me. Well, maybe it's, I just want to understand, make sure I understand this. So I think one thing that really came out clearly from your presentation to us is there's one set of models that are used for budgeting purposes, which are obviously projections. And then there's 2 ways we end up paying for actual IGCs. One is based on particular services, and the other is kind of a, subscription fee, for want of a better term. And I think the thing that really came out to me, and I think you've just mentioned, was that some of these subscription fees for fire department services seem really quite steep. Maybe the same way as other subscription fees seem to be going up, apparently including in service. So that's probably where the focus should be, if that's something we have no control. So I'd say from the future board, maybe we'll pay very careful attention to the payments we are making that are not service-based, specific service-based. Thank you.
And Chief Weston.
Thank you for that. In full disclosure, Chugiak Fire and us did compare and share our IGC charges against each other. And we did recognize from that last meeting we had when the Anchorage Fire Department reorganized and put more people into different categories, then that suddenly increased the FTEs into those categories. That suddenly increased the cost hit to the 2 nonprofits. What was striking of looking at comparing our 2 IGCs together was I did notice right off the bat that Chugiak has a larger fleet than us. However, our fleet costs are very similar. And so that was interesting to see. And for us, we have almost modernized, we've been able to hopefully going forward, modernize most of our fleet. We have 1 SUV we still need to purchase, but we've been able to modernize to not have an older fleet, because as those fleet long-term, you're trying to maintain old vehicles, they break all the time. So getting a modernized fleet does decrease the services. We are also hearing rumors that there's going to be a big IGC increase in fleet costs coming up in the next budget cycle. So it would be lovely to have this organized before we go into the next budget season. For us, we are in a point of we need additional staffing. And so all the money that we can claw back or possibly get from an IGC charge is directly going into the labor budget to hire additional positions. And so that's why this is important to us.
Did you want to respond at all or sorry?
Well, I do have a question without asking for names, or maybe for names. Where have you heard that there is going to be a very large IGC fleet adjustment?
Just the rumor that's on, and fire departments are ranked with rumors, right? So I'll say that, right? So we all know tell a firefighter, you go across town really quickly. So, whether it's true or not, you always got to truth check, but we are hearing that. And I did hear that from multiple people said that, hey, I heard this, chief. Hey, I heard this. So whether it's true or not, it might not be true, but that's what we heard. So, it's just, as we look at our budget and we really want to have more staffing to provide the best possible service to the visitors of the community and also the residents, we want to make sure that we have some ability to do that.
And I think to the chair's point about the membership fees having adjusted it sort of in an outpaced way compared to the service changes, I think that is one of the big ones that we are looking at to understand how those changes within the fire department and the changes within Girdwood and Chugiak have actually made the IGCs not as applicable as they once were on their original formula. And I would expect that ideally those membership categories, as well as some of the more costly use categories, will go down as part of our analysis. And we would see some additional room for 2026, ideally. Having said all of that, I don't know what we find under other rocks when we turn them over, but I think the intention would be to discuss any and all changes with GVSA before anything is adjusted officially.
And to that point, I think scheduling a meeting on the regular agenda, have this discussion in June with GVOS, and then once again at the next quarterly meeting after that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Okay, do we have anything else on this item? Be conscious of everyone's time. Okay. We have follow-up, HLB items. Let's start with Ruane and Orca View.
Tiffany or Bob, you want to start or Ryan, I'm not sure who wants to take the lead on an update on Ruane and Orca View.
Yeah, sure. I'll actually have Ryan, he's the project lead for that, so he will give an update for you.
Sure, thanks, Tiffany. So the Ruane, when they say Ruane Road, I'm assuming that's Girdwood Industrial Park. That plat is moving forward. Unfortunately, our surveyor is a little behind in getting the final plat submitted, but they have assured me that this week they will likely get that submitted to the planning department for final review. And the final review process typically takes a few weeks. So we were initially thinking that we would have that plat recorded by the end of this month, but it's looking like it's probably going to record by the end of May. With Orca View subdivision, that one is working its way through the final plat process, and we do anticipate that one recording within the next few weeks. There was just some debate going back and forth between the surveyor and our surveyor, I should say, and the municipal surveyor's office about the appropriate right-of-way dedication for Alyeska Highway. But other than that, there weren't any major issues with that plat through the final plat review.
Okay, so do we have any questions on this so far, on either the GIP or Orca View?
Yeah, I guess I do. Next steps for Orca View. I think one thing I'm hearing a lot in the community is a concern that this will be put out to bid for the highest bidder, and will become yet another market rate high-end homes development rather than what we obviously hope it will be to actually provide some workforce housing. I know it's early in the process, but can you either just calm down us nervous people, or just give a sense of what the timescale is for the next steps?
Yeah, thank you. That rumor had trickled its way down to us as well. I can assure you the only pre-development activities we've done for that is, of course, the plat. And then we did the sewer mainline feasibility analysis. That was simple conceptual desktop review study that was done to get a ballpark estimate for what it would cost to install a sewer main line to service the Orca View subdivision. We have not been in any discussions with any developers. We are not drafting an RFP to develop that site at this time. We're really in sort of a holding pattern, waiting for some direction, working with the community on what those priorities are for developing the site. But yeah, I can say we're not making phone calls to any developers right now to develop that site.
Or receiving them.
All right,
Oh, I'm
thank
sorry,
you.
what was that?
I said or receiving them.
Or
Thank you.
receiving them, yes.
Thank
you. All right, and then should we move on to, we're curious about I just wanted to touch base. I asked for this next agenda item. Just wanted to touch base on, I want to make sure we're in active dialogue about how to handle speculative inquiries, maybe or maybe not, like one we just received, because they did amount to a whole lot of time for those of us on GBOS fielding concerned calls from residents, but it's hard to know how seriously to take these things. And I know we've asked HLB to weigh in with us earlier, so I really appreciate that. Thank you. But on the other hand, right, we need to be careful on how much we get the community worked up about things that are potentially maybe AI generated pie in the sky nonsense. So I was wondering if either one of you had any feedback about that.
Did you want to go first, Ryan, or did you want me to?
Sure. Yeah, Tiffany, I'll let you.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying. And we kind of we struggled with this request a bit just because we also felt like, well, it's not in our work plan. It's not a priority for us, but tell the community about it. And if it's something that, GBOS or Land Use Committee came to HLB and was like, yes, this is one you need to float in the priority, we would certainly be open to that. But I think the feedback we got is that is probably not the case. And so we're happy to, for this project, we can, maybe tell them that they need to, I don't know, go away is not the right word, but wait until a more appropriate time when we're actually doing our work plan planning. But I mean, we do want to communicate with GBOS, and so I guess
that actually helps a lot, because I think what I'm hearing is that you're looking for positive reinforcement of the proposal that might come forward, and not necessarily that we all need to get the community outrage signs out.
Yes, thank you. For
not that that would necessarily
yes.
happen anyway. It's all hypothetical. I'm just saying hypothetical.
Is that?
Yeah, and so I was going to say, should we just be communicating HLB? Should we just communicate directly with, GBOS and not necessarily have it at like a community meeting level, or, just trying to gauge how that happens?
I'm not going to single-handedly answer that. Let me see if Brian Burnett, would you like to, let me hear from the board a little bit.
Thanks, Jennifer. Hi, guys. Ryan, Tiffany, you guys really got your work cut out for you. I would like to suggest that a lot of these projects like this that come in half-baked would run through the HLBAC and then task our Girdwood representatives with coming and making a short report instead of having the developer come in. And that might be a way to sort of filter out some of the chaff and make sure that projects that are relevant in our community and that align with our community culture and values make it for consideration, so that we get people showing up that are psyched to see something going on, as opposed to pitchforks and tar and feather.
Yeah, the difficult part with that is that's not really the function of HLBAC. We go to them to recommend items to the assembly. So for projects to be pitched to them, that's not usually the flow. But we can certainly do a look at it differently, just between ourselves. And we can put it in a work plan, and if that's something that interests people, great. If they want us to take it out, great. We can work it that way.
Actually, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say we've been asking for more communication. I guess now we're seeing downside for more communication. But I think we're going to see more of these. There's something somewhat similar happening up in Fairbanks at the moment, where somebody's proposed with lots of AI backup and not much practical backup, about $500 million resort they're proposing, which doesn't appear to be in any way feasible. So I think we're going to see far more of this. And we don't really want to set up a situation where there's just, lots of reaction to it and outrage and lots of extra work. So we perhaps just should nuance the style of communication. And I'm very happy if you continue informal communication, because I've only got 27 more hours.
I was going to, if I may, I was going to suggest that maybe a starting place would be making sure that we're communicating, for starters, with the GBOS land use supervisor, whoever that is. And so I think that that would be a really good place to decide where to take the question or how much of a question it is. And so I think we could trust our LUC supervisor to then either bring it to GBOS or LUC, or say, how about we put this on the back burner? How does that sound? So that way we still have communication. As Mike said, communication, much appreciated.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Like I said, this was kind of a new one for us, and threw us for a little bit of a loop as well. So
new for us too. Yes, I see Bob Doyle.
Good afternoon. I would just add that the advent of AI, you're not alone in Girdwood. We're feeling the same packets with good ideas showing up within the bowl itself for projects, and we recognize it's trouble. It can be challenging to figure out what to do with those, and we're just trying to be as transparent as possible with Girdwood.
And Mikhail?
And I'll jump on that note as well, because I also got phone calls scolding us for having too many conversations with the developer before we brought it to the community, because they felt like we were doing something behind the community's back. And all we had was one conversation, and our conversation was, come to the community. We recommend if you really want to talk about this. And the developer himself actually called and set up the presentation. He wasn't directed or forced by us or HLB. He wanted to get the community input, and that's what led to that conversation. So it's a double-edged sword for us in the way staff will take the beating, because we think we're trying to hide something, but we're not. We're trying to bring it forward, and then people get upset that we brought it forward. So we're trying to find that balance. I appreciate the feedback that we're getting here as we deal with it. And I'll say that this developer is not going away. He wants more. He's asking more questions and wants to know more about what to do this, and which I'm really surprised after that meeting he's still here. But we will try to find that balance. And my point was, I was actually going to work with the land use supervisor to figure out where we go with this next. So
okay, excellent. And so I do want to thank HLB for their involvement. Yes.
I think I would just, sort of second what Kyle said here. I feel a little bit this is like a Goldilocks situation. It's like, it was too cold, and then we went too hot. And so I feel like trying to I appreciate the practical suggestions of like what might help us find the middle ground. So I think that I hear the feedback of talking more with the land use supervisor and trying to think about more ways on our end that we could communicate from HLB directly about kind of the intent of referring a project. And then we can continue to get more feedback. I think I would just say we hear the concern, try and figure out a way to thread that perfect porridge solution.
Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that this is a new situation for all of us. I mean, as Mike says, I think we are going to see more of these. This might be a work in progress, but I really appreciate the open communication with HLB, and I hope we'll just continue to troubleshoot together and figure this out. So thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks.
I know we're getting tight on time, but can we take, are we all right with taking 5 more minutes and just discussing the last item here?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have the MOA capital funding for the Whittier Police Department capital needs in Girdwood.
Yeah, I can speak to this briefly. So we all pay, the whole municipality pays a levy, so a tax levy, an additional piece of tax for police IT, I think is what it's titled as. For the last several years, it's only been for only APD has been spending money on it. I asked the question a while ago, a few months ago, about whether this could be used for any capital needs for Whittier. And I think our previous conversation at the previous meeting with Becky would have to be equipment that the municipality can own. And based on a brief conversation I had with the chief, I think they were looking at some capital costs around cameras, which probably wouldn't fall into that. But since I'm off the body, 26 hours, 50 something minutes probably, I wanted to make sure this wasn't lost, and there's still communication here. So I think we were hoping the chief might actually be able to join us today. It doesn't look like he is. But so I think this is probably something Carl can take on. So to your massive spare time.
Wait, can I ask you what kind, is it body worn cameras? Or what's the-
No, they want to increase the infrastructure they have for sort of storage and managing camera, but that seems like it's more of a central camera data.
Oh, okay,
well,
got it.
cloud
So like,
space.
they want like a brain and
Yeah.
that handles all the
Yeah,
different
I think
cameras,
they
like
need
a Fusus
they
system or
need to
something.
use software and things like that, but it's probably not something that would fall under the sort of capital restrictions that
Yeah.
probably has. But I don't know. I just want to make sure we don't lose this.
Yeah, I think I
lose
need
this
to
item.
know more about the specifics of
Right.
how much does it, I could see an argument that we could potentially support proportional to the amount to which the system supports their work in Girdwood, but I don't know.
So that might be a good way.
I don't know the nature of what it is they're buying. Are they buying like a subscription? Are they buying some for the service? Are they buying an actual capital asset? Are they, and then where do they use it? I don't know where their cameras are, what camera
Well,
data they
they're
have.
both-
So they just
same-
buy
same
camera
thing.
data. Okay. So I think we need to know more, but I think as we said last time around, as I said last time around, we're certainly open, I understand the ask. It's just the challenge is trying to figure out how we support assets for the police department when they don't just serve the municipality. So
Yes.
we need to figure out how to target toward things that we could own as a municipality and use, have them use in municipality for reasoned and supportable way of sharing costs if there's something that's used jointly in the municipality and also elsewhere. But I need to know more about what it is there.
Okay, so the next step probably are then to come up with once we've got, I think that answer gives us a better general idea. So it's not off the table. Then I think it's a question of coming up with a specific proposal, working through that.
I think that's absolutely right. I think it's probably the same timing as the TIPS proposal timing, because it would be a budget question, I think, for 2027. So to the extent that there is something that's timely that is desired to be done in 2027, it'd be good to keep talking about it in the next.
My
few
understanding was that the budget hasn't necessarily been completely spent and allocated in 2026.
Oh, for 2026.
Yes.
So there's space in it. I don't, Ona, do you know the answer to that? Ona has her hand up. She can tell me the answer.
I don't know what the answer to that question, whether or not it has been fully allocated the 2026 revenue. We can look into that. But what I had my hand raised for was to flag to Mike and any other people who are interested that I'll send you an email to set up some time to talk. I'd like to have a conversation with you about revenue generally and any opportunities that you, Girdwood, have explored in the past, that you have contemplated exploring, that you are interested in exploring, and how we might be able to have those conversations this year, next year, going forward, what that might look like and what those sort of designs could encompass, if that's of interest.
I think Mike is merrily exiting stage left, but I'm happy to have those conversations unless you want to.
Still have public comment.
And I would love to coordinate maybe with Kyle as well on that.
Great.
All right, thank you very much. I think we're at the end of our agenda. Do we have any public comment? Do we have anyone here who would like to provide any public comment? If not, I would say. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, it's okay. I'd just like to suggest that the out of area fire code, that ordinance could be looked at to see if those fees could be increased. So that's one place to look. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anything else? Move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.